Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name's Louise Bickerton, and I'm the President of the Australian Lavender Growers Association. Really glad you could join us tonight for our session on getting started in agritourism. It is great to see so many of you, so many members, and also other faces, other people who might be interested in this topic. Before we jump in, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our Lavender Growers Association. We call it TALGA. We have member farms from all over the country growing lavender, distilling essential oil, or processing the flowers and making successful businesses out of this amazing plant. So for the past 30 years, TALGA has been here to support our members with advice, encouragement, and access to trusted information. We love bringing people together at our annual events, and we're always working on helpful online resources like this webinar. Tonight, we're very lucky to be joined by our two guest presenters, Linda Tillman, Managing Director of the Tillman Group, and her colleague Kushla Gale. Welcome, thank you for being here with us. They're consultant specialists in regional tourism development and are here to walk us through the ins and outs of agritourism. Something that can add real value to your business, but can be complex and difficult to manage without the right advice and support. So that's enough from me. Let's get started. Over to you, Linda and Kushla.
Thanks, Louise. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to, a little bit of housekeeping, if I may. Just because we're recording the session, if I could just ask everybody to keep their cameras off and also their microphones off, just as we're presenting the initial content. It just means that the recording is a bit cleaner, and if anybody wants to go back and watch that or share that with others, you'll certainly appreciate that. Anyway, let's jump in. So many faces. It's lovely to see everybody. Before we kick off, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. I'm joining you from Guyable country in Toowoomba, beautiful Toowoomba in southern Queensland. And I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which I live and work. And I pay my respect to elders past and present. And I'd just like to extend that acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the lands you are joining us from this evening, and also welcome any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are joining us on this webinar. And that beautiful image that you can see is looking out off the escarpment from Toowoomba, one of my favourite places. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. Thank you, Louise, for briefly introducing Tillman Group. My colleague Kushla is on the line here this evening as well. And we are essentially a boutique consultancy that specialises in regional tourism development. And although we're based in southern Queensland, you'll often find us travelling around regional and rural Australia and delivering fabulous projects right across the country. Our specialty is working with regional and rural communities to grow sustainable and competitive visitor economies. And we do that through many different initiatives, and we work with many different clients, which range from government. So we do big strategic projects around tourism development, destination development, right down to working with grassroots mum and dad operators. So we have that broad spectrum of experience and really great insight into the industry. Agritourism is one of the key focus areas for us at Tillman, and that's because it does tend to present a really good opportunity in terms of experience design and also product development in regional and rural destinations. So, and it's also in high demand, which I'll talk a little bit about in terms of consumers or travellers. So that tends to be a specialty area for us. We're currently delivering two really exciting agritourism projects. One of those in Central West New South Wales with the Oberon, Bathurst and Lithgow councils. And we're also delivering one in the Somerset region, just in the Brisbane Valley, not far from where we are in Toowoomba, in southern Queensland. And these projects range from us really getting, deep in understanding the legislation, what's possible within agritourism, what's not, and how to guide farmers through the development of an on-farm tourism experience. And we do that through one-on-one mentoring. So we're really pragmatic. We also do lots of strategy work, but what we love is the activation. We love getting our hands dirty. We love working with operators to see really exciting tourism developments and outcomes. That's enough about us. You can check us out online. So what we're going to cover tonight, you can see on the screen what we'll cover. A couple of things I just wanted to note. If anything comes up throughout the evening as we're presenting the content, please don't hesitate to jump into the chat box. And what I'd love you to do initially, if you are comfortable doing so, there's a chat box within Teams. If you could jump in there and actually just introduce yourself. We have a wide range of people joining the webinar tonight, and we'll have another group watching on with the recording. So it'd be fabulous if everybody could jump in and just quickly introduce yourself and familiarise yourself with the chat function. And if you want to use that throughout the webinar, please don't hesitate to do that, because we will allow some time at the end this evening for some questions. We want to make sure we answer your specific questions as well this evening. Also, just to note, this is a farmer-focused webinar. So we've designed the content this evening specifically with farmers in mind. So we wanted to give you some really practical tips in terms of your agri-tourism journey. So it's not so much focused on destination managers. However, I think it will still give great value to anybody. But if we do have destination managers here working within government, I just wanted to make you aware that we have a webinar that we did for Economic Development Australia that's very focused on agritourism development for destination managers, and that's available on the Economic Development Australia member website. All right, let's go. Before we start, I'm actually going to get you to share a little bit of information. So what I need you to do right now, this is what we call a Slido. It's an interactive quiz or engagement tool. What I'd love you to do is just grab out your phones, and thanks to good old COVID, we're all pretty familiar now using QR codes. So if you could pick up your phone and just get the camera function and access the QR code that you can see on the screen right now, and it will come up on your phone and you'll be able to respond to this question. We would love to know from who is here this evening, what stage are you currently at in your agri-tourism journey? And that will come up live on the screen, as you can see. I'll give us a minute or so to do that. Just a reminder for any new people that have come in, just to pop yourself on mute if you can, please. So what stage are you at in your journey? Fabulous. There is a bottom one. Sorry, I'll just scroll my screen a bit. So we do have one down there that you couldn't quite see. Got a bit of a mixture. Fabulous. Everything's in place to get started. 29% of you, how exciting. Okay, so as you can see there, we've got a mixture of people in terms of where you are at, in terms of your agritourism journey, but it looks like you're in the very early stages. If not, you're ready to launch into it. So I will hope that this evening we'll really start to, or we'll help you understand the important steps that you need to take in order to successfully develop a tourism, on-farm tourism experience, or what we call agritourism. Do we have any newbies? Oh, yay. This webinar sparked the first thought and curiosity. Welcome. How exciting. I always love looking at agritourism, working with farmers and identifying it as a diversification opportunity for farmers. And it's really exciting, those initial conversations around just understanding what is agritourism, what does it mean, what does it look like on my farm, how do I do it? It's a really somewhat daunting journey, but a really exciting journey because we love tourism. It's a fun industry. We actually deliver experiences for people. So our job is to make sure people have a great time. Just kind of fun. All right, let's move along. Fabulous. Thank you everybody for joining in there, and thank you for those that have introduced themselves in the chat. If you've joined us a few minutes late, please jump into the chat box and introduce yourself just so we can see who's joining us tonight. Now, what is agritourism? It's a bit of a term that can be a little bit confusing. Some people say agrotourism, it's just for many different reasons. It's one of those terms that's been used a lot, but we're always or often a little bit confused about what it actually is. And there's some work that's been done in the recent years just around getting some clarity on a consistent definition around what agritourism is. Australian Regional Tourism will share some more on the resources they've developed, but they've actually created a national definition in Australia that essentially defines agritourism as a type of experiential travel which connects people to product or produce delivered on farming land through an on-farm experience. So essentially, agritourism is what connects guests or visitors with the farm, with the farmer, and with farm activities and farm produce. Really important to note that the purpose is not to replace agriculture. Agritourism is about supplementing the income and supporting the viability and resilience of agriculture on a commercial farm. It's really great opportunity to provide a pathway to market, and or it can add value to the produce that comes from that farm. It's also a great opportunity to leverage farm assets. So agritourism offers farmers opportunities to generate additional income. It allows you to diversify operations. It allows you to establish customer relations, and it can build business resilience as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. There's three key elements to agritourism. So when we talk about what defines agritourism, these are three really key elements that make up agritourism. So to be acknowledged as agritourism, an experience must be delivered on farm and include one or both of engagement with people and product. So on a commercial farm, interaction with the farmer, interaction with the produce. They are the three key elements of agritourism. If it's not on a commercial farm, that's actually defined as rural tourism. So it's quite different. And it's interesting, why do we have to have a definition? Why does this have to be so clear? The definition is really important because it actually then supports the legislation around agritourism. Really important point to note here is that we don't want agritourism to impact on the amount of highly productive agricultural land that we have in Australia. So that's why the definition is there. It's to protect our valuable agricultural land from being taken over by other developments. So that's why being on a commercial farm is really important. So that gives you a little bit of insight into what agritourism is. In terms of giving examples of agritourism experiences, because a lot of people actually think when they think agritourism, they think often about accommodation. They think about farm stays, on-farm accommodation. That tends to be the thing in our experience that will be the first thing that will come to their mind. But there's so many different experiences that sit within agritourism. And the most common agritourism experiences around Australia, and this comes from some work that was done in 2020, are farm stays. And beyond that, there's also food tourism, farm gates and wineries. And then less common products are farm tours, brewery and distillery visits, educational experiences, and active participation like pick your own experiences, cattle drives, anything that's got that active participation. So you can see there on the slide right now, there's many different types of agritourism experiences that you can consider for your farm. And what we often see is that farmers will kind of dabble in one particular area or one type of experience. And then over time, they may actually add more experiences and start to build on the visitor experience that people can have when they come onto the farm. So it's not necessarily just one particular area that you have to focus on. When we think about lavender farms, because that's what we're here to talk about, photography is a really important offering. And whether that is a desire for amateur visitors to take photos on their phone or to share on social media, the beautiful photography that can come from that gorgeous purple lavender fields is a really exciting opportunity for photographers. Or you can even have those higher end professional photographers that will arrange photo shoots for special occasions. And they're always looking for those opportunities to have those beautiful backdrops and settings for things like weddings, engagements, or even family photos. So really thinking about those opportunities that could exist on your farm. And also when we think about photography, the beautiful thing about that is it can also act as a promotion. So you can actually having high-end professional photographers on your farm, or influencers, as we often refer to them as, that can actually provide marketing and promotional opportunities for your farm as well. So loads of different agritourism experiences that you can explore for your particular farm. And then we have what we call supporting agritourism services. So these things are not classified as agritourism because they're not on farm, but they actually really add depth to the agritourism appeal of your local community or of your destination. And what that does is it encourages people to stay longer and spend more if they've got more things to do. So you imagine they've got all of these opportunities to have on-farm experiences, but then outside of the farm, we have things like farmers markets, food festivals and food trails. We have local cafes and restaurants that serve local produce, and they're not on farm, but they add to that farm or agritourism experience within a region. So they're part of the ecosystem. And what we know in tourism is, particularly in regional and rural destinations, we need that density of product to be able to attract visitors. Often they need to travel a bit further, so we want that density of product to be able to appeal to them. Now, I wanted to share with you a few things that you need to consider in designing an agritourism experience, or if you're in those early stages and you're thinking about, well, what will we actually do on our farm? These are some things I want to share with you. These are things that we are seeing from a tourism perspective that are really important to create memorable and immersive experiences on your farm. The thing to think, first of all, is authenticity is critical. Don't try to be something you're not. And this is what I love about agritourism and farming, is that most farmers are absolutely genuine, down-to-earth people that just want to share their story. So I feel like that authenticity can certainly shine through. So don't try to be something you're not. Visitors are looking for real, meaningful experiences, and even what we would refer to as transformational experiences. So they want feelings that allow them to actually connect, and that allow them to feel like they're contributing to the greater good. They want immersive experiences. What we mean by that is they want to get their hands dirty. They want hands-on experiences. They want personal experience. So they don't just want those passive experiences where, they're observing or watching. So if you think about that from a lavender farm perspective, they want to pick their own. They want to make their own lavender oil. They want to feed the animals. It's like they actually want to be involved, not just actually sitting back and having that passive experience. So thinking about how you can enable those types of opportunities for people. People also want to learn. They want to really learn and understand what you do on the farm, how you do things, why you do things a certain way. And that lends an opportunity to actually empower our visitors how to recognise quality, empower and educate our visitors on using Australian lavender and on supporting local farmers. Sustainability is really important as well, and there's lots of research that's coming out around this, but one that often kind of highlights or demonstrates the importance of sustainability is through booking.com. They've actually identified in their travel report for 2024 that 80% of travellers want to buy sustainable experiences. Nature-based and wellness experiences are just continually growing. This desire to be in nature, this desire to be outdoors, there's a really big growth in demand for those types of experiences. So thinking about, once again, if you've got lavender fields, like imagine holding wellness retreats within lavender fields. So always just thinking about, what are the trends? What are our customers or travellers looking for in terms of experiences, and always making sure you're meeting those needs and expectations. And these things are important for you to consider in the early stages when you're designing the experiences that you're going to be offering your visitors, or even if you've already got experiences in mind, how do you bring these things into them? How are you constantly evolving and meeting those needs of your guests or visitors? And also really important that as a destination, you think about your agritourism story. Think about what's special or distinct about the agricultural industry and the environment within your local area. Because we don't want to just do what everybody else is doing. So thinking about how you've got that close connection to the story of your local agricultural industry or your local place is really important. And find that unique hook and be different. So don't be what we call same. Don't copy the neighbours just because they've created something successful. Look for the gaps and the opportunities to create something that's different and unique and that is special for you and for your farm. There are great economic opportunities in agritourism for farmers. The demand for agritourism and on-farm experiences is growing, and in 2019, CSIRO did some research and they noted the growing importance of agritourism and its significant projected contribution to regional and rural economy over the next decade. And what they found is that by 2030, the agritourism sector is expected to be worth 5.5 billion. That's across the country, and with indirect benefit of another 18.6 billion. So that's across things like transport, accommodation, retail sectors, etc. So that kind of flow-on effect. So the research shows it's a real growth opportunity for regional and rural communities and for those economies. And in addition to that, it can also bring great economic value to a family and to a community. Tourism is a great industry to be in. I'm a little bit biased, but the spend on tourism is continually increasing and it is a growing industry. So we've got some stats on the screen that you can see that on there now. That's from Tourism Research Australia. So they are the national organisation that supplies us with tourism research. And you can see there's some stats around, you know, the average amount that people spend when they're visiting farms. So it is what we would classify as a higher yield experience opportunity for farmers. The value that agritourism brings does vary depending on the type of offering that you have and also the regions. So it's always kind of got those variables in there to consider. But you can see on the screen in terms of those three things that agritourism can bring to you as a farmer and a family. It's the income, it's productivity, and it's also job creation. So often we hear people wanting to go down tourism as a diversification opportunity because it provides an opportunity to perhaps keep the family on the land. It presents an opportunity for the need to remove off-farm income generation from one of the partners or from children. So it really does present exciting opportunities, and often it can be easier to make money from tourism than from farming, from what we've heard. And it can offer a more stable cash flow. So there's some exciting opportunities there to be had in terms of new income, you know, diversifying the income, so spreading that risk, enabling adult kids to make a living, you know, off the farm, building the customers as well. So you've also got that opportunity to have direct access to customers And then, of course, we have that flow-on benefit to local businesses. So you're also supporting the local economy and the local community, and that can be purely just through the shopping that you're doing locally, maintenance, laundry, etc. We call that the tourism multiplier effect that flows on through your local community and local economy. And in addition to economic value, we can't ignore the many social and environmental opportunities that agritourism also brings to regional and rural communities and also to farming families. And we also know that strong social well-being leads to strong economics. So we always consider the social value that agritourism can bring to farming communities as well. You can see there on the screen, we've just listed a few of them, but that opportunity for farmers to have that social contact, particularly farmers in more remote locations that can feel isolated, it presents a really exciting opportunity for them to have connection. It can support conservation efforts. It provides the opportunity for farmers to share their stories, to share their stories around how they do farming, about their conservation efforts, and create that pride. We get to celebrate local food production, we can inspire future farmers, and it also allows us really to share positive, good stories about farming in Australia. Those ethical and sustainable farming practices. And for a community, it can actually improve the livability. So lots of great benefits, lots of exciting opportunities in agritourism, but it's important to know that whilst we have great benefits and great opportunities with tourism and on-farm or agritourism, it's not for every farmer and it's not for every farm. And that's really important for you to consider. So what I'd like to encourage you to do after the webinar, don't get distracted by this now, I want you to sit with the family and do this quiz. This is in the Australian Regional Tourism Farmers Guide, and you can scan that little QR code that you can see on the screen right now. It will take you to the guide, but we'll also have a link to that at the end of the webinar as well, so if you don't want to get distracted. But on page 7 and 8 in the guide, there's 2 great quizzes in there, and we always like to encourage farmers to do this, but not alone. Do it with the family, because this has to be something that you do together. And it just asks some questions to get you thinking, is agritourism right for us as a farming family? And then it's got a few things for you to consider in terms of, is the farm suitable for agritourism? So there's a little bit of homework for you to do tonight after we inspire you and get you excited about agritourism. Now, with any new business, it's not always easy. So we can talk about all of the benefits, but there are also some processes and there's some challenges that you need to navigate in business. So it's important for you to consider the potential risks and the costs and not just get excited by the benefits. So we think about, the cost benefit analysis. Essentially, that's what you're doing, which is what we do with any kind of business development. So we always encourage you to think about what are the costs, what are the risks associated with it, assess that against the benefit or the opportunity to determine the cost benefit analysis. And there's some of the things we're going to talk through with you shortly. But what I'd love you to do right now is pick your phone up again, scan the QR code, or if you just go into your web browser, it should just naturally bring it up, but you can always just rescan the QR code. I want you to share with us now what challenges or risks you have experienced on your journey. So many of you said that you've kind of done a lot of the preparation, you're now kind of ready to go. I want you to share what challenges or risks did you experience up to now? Or if you're new and you haven't yet started on the journey, what are some of the things that you're worried about? What are some of the things that you're scared in terms of risk or challenges? Just put 1 or 2 words in, and you can put as many as you want. So you can put multiple things in there. If you see somebody's already put something in there, you can put something similar and it will just make that word bigger on the screen for us. And I'll just give about 30 seconds for everybody to type something in. Mm. Damn weather. Yeah, okay, that's weather, absolutely. Time is interesting. I'm assuming that is suggesting having the time to do it. And maybe what that's also suggesting, and if anyone wants to drop anything into the chat box to expand on that, please do. But what we do sometimes hear from farmers is that kind of fear of tourism having to be always on, as in people are going to be coming onto our farm all the time. It's going to distract us from, our core business of farming. But it's actually quite the opposite. You can manage the time and you can block out times of when you're open and when you're not. So you can be seasonal. So you don't operate during your peak farming season, for example. So interesting to think about that from a time perspective. I'm really interested in these comments around fear of failure. People, sorry, I'm just reading as I'm going. Fear of failure, finding a market, full event attendance, guests sneaking in dogs to stay. There was another one saying not getting enough people. Yeah, do we have enough to attract people? Yeah, interesting comments. They don't often come up when we ask this question. It's more heavily around, development consent and compliance and risk management and insurance and those types of things. So that's actually good, because they're all things that we're going to talk about tonight in terms of making sure you understand your market and understanding the opportunity. Because if you've got that fear around, will people come? How many people will come? Will they do this? Will they do that? It's so important for us to know who our market is, to be able to manage some of those things and have control over those things. Yes, visitors will sometimes just want to do what they want to, but there's certainly ways that you can manage and navigate that. That's excellent. Distance from large population. That's where I was saying before about, we need that density of product. We've got to give people a reason to come. So if you've just got one agritourism business sitting in isolation, hundreds of kilometres from a major population base, you might struggle unless it's something totally unique, exceptional, must-do type experience. But that's where we say it's this idea of working in collaboration, getting other farmers working in agritourism, working as a collective, and creating that density of product that will attract visitors out. And don't everybody do the same. Create that wider experience for people. Nice work. All right, we'll share, this will come back in the recording, and we'll also share a screenshot of the word cloud with Louise and the team as well, that they can share that out with everybody. But interesting to see that, seasonality, lots of very common things coming up there. And in New South Wales, Service New South Wales actually did some research, and they identified some key barriers to new agritourism businesses. And they found that the most common ones were the development application process, managing customer safety, which many of you have talked about, judging risks accurately, which you've talked about. Well, there you go. Finding the time to run a tourism business. That was identified by Service New South Wales as well. Also, lack of funding, managing biosecurity, and also concerns around privacy and lifestyle changes. So I feel like you've covered off on lots of those top barriers that are identified by the majority of people. Now what I want to do is take you through and hopefully give you some tips and advice on how to deal with these things. And I'm going to go through these things fairly quickly just to prompt some thinking, and then you can actually have some time to ask your questions as well. So we've kind of got 6 things that we're going to cover off on, and these are things that we always encourage farmers to consider before committing to tourism as the next diversification opportunity for you. So once you've taken the quiz that I shared with you later tonight, and the family's all confident and they're like, yep, this is good for us. We're interested. It's suitable for us. It's suitable for our farm. And you're all excited. These are the things that you need to start to consider next. We haven't really got them in any kind of order as such, because some of these things you'll do and then you'll come back to the other thing, and they kind of all happen a little bit at the same time, in order to make sure that you've got all of the information and the insight to be able to make a really informed decision around the cost-benefit analysis of agritourism for you and your farm. The first thing you need to do is research. So many farmers already have an idea of what they may like to do on their farm, and that could be a farm stay, a wedding venue, farm tours, whatever it may be. But what we encourage you to do is to talk with your local tourism or economic development manager at council and your regional tourism organisation, because they'll help you understand what the gaps and the opportunities are within your region for you to take advantage of. So, for example, they might say, you know, we need more luxury accommodation experiences on farm. We've got a gap in that area. They may say we don't need any more wedding venues. We're kind of at saturation point with wedding venues, for example. So they can give you some really good insights into the current situation in terms of what already exists and where the gaps are and what visitors are looking for in the region. So really important for you to think about that, because that will help you plan and adjust your thinking around what type of experience you want to offer. They can also help you find relevant tourism information, similar visitor stats to what I was sharing with you before from Tourism Research Australia. So really important people for you to connect in with and have conversations with and do some research. The other thing is benchmarking. I love benchmarking, looking at what others are doing. And don't just look local. Think all of Australia. Think even globally if you want. But who is leading the way in on-farm experiences? What places have you seen that are doing it well? Who inspires you? And it could just be for certain little aspects. You might go, oh, I love, you know, this particular farm experience because they do this really well. But I also love this farm experience because they do this well. So you start to find people or experiences that you really are inspired by and talk to them, learn from them. So think about how you can really connect with those other agritourism operators to really understand, you know, what are the most profitable offerings that they have? How do they set their prices? Where did they get helpful advice from on their agritourism journey? And the last one there is, I can't say this strongly enough, you need to define and really get to know your target market or your target markets, because ultimately you're creating an experience for them and you need to think about how to meet their needs. And that's where your council or your regional tourism organisation can assist you with that. So knowing your market and who you're designing the experience for is absolutely critical. So research is the one of the important steps for you to take. The other thing we encourage you to do is connect with the tourism industry. So agritourism support sits outside of the industry you're familiar with, which is agriculture. Most agricultural organisations are not familiar with agritourism and don't have a lot of support resources in that space. Hopefully that will change. Agritourism sits within the tourism industry. So one of the biggest things that will help your agritourism business is input from the tourism industry. So that they can give you information similar to what I was just saying with the regional tourism organisation. They can give you information on target markets, trends, grant opportunities. They can give you information on resources that are available to assist you. So make sure that you take the time to meet with your regional tourism organisations, build a relationship with them, sign up to industry newsletters. So we've got local and regional industry bodies that have newsletters. There can even be, you know, specific associations like Caravan and Camping Association or Hotels Association or even hunting associations. You know, there's specific associations as well that might be able to also give you information. Anyone that's in Queensland, make sure that you sign up with Agritourism Queensland to become a member of that organisation. And there's also a global organisation called Global Agritourism Network for anybody that's interested in really getting involved in agritourism. And Kushla, maybe if it's possible, you could drop some of the links to those organisations in the chat box for everybody to access. Otherwise, we can supply those through Louise. The other thing that you need to do is plan your offering. Plan. And I know this is boring sometimes, but it's so interesting as you work through the process as to what you can learn and find out. You need to handle agritourism as a new business. Don't just treat it as an extension to your farming business. I really want you to follow the steps as though you're starting a new business. And most of the time, I know we can take, some of us entrepreneurs like to jump in and take a little bit of risk, but we take calculated risk. So cost benefit analysis, doing some planning as though you're starting a new business is really important. So think about what are the goals that you want to achieve as a family. And as you do that quiz that I've shared with you, with the family, have these conversations. How much profit do you need to generate or want to generate? How much contact do you want to have with visitors? Do you want to be totally hands off, or do you want to be right in there and connecting with them and sharing stories? What are your skills and capacities? So thinking about these things. You need to define your offering and keep in mind that as you work through the development and the early stages, you might tweak that. And when you have different conversations with people, you may tweak it. And really interesting to think about, how can you create a year-round offering? And this is really important for flower growers or lavender farmers like many of you on the call this evening. How do you actually create year-round experiences when you've got a seasonal offering? Doing a competitor analysis is really good. Look at their target markets, their pricing, you know, how are they doing things? How can you be different? Getting financial advice, thinking about, you know, tax implications. Are you setting up a separate business? Consider a phased development. So can you actually start? You might have big grand plans, right, of what you want to do, but can you start with something that's low cost to test and trial initially without a major, you know, capital investment? And really taking the time to do business cases and marketing plans. And if you need to engage a specialist, you can do that. In most cases, like Service New South Wales, I know is helpful in New South Wales, Business Queensland. So there's often state-based organisations that can give free or low-cost support in those areas as well. The next thing you need to do is look into insurance. Or I shouldn't say the next thing, one of the first things. So all of these 6 things all kind of happen. They're all just as important. Looking into insurance. So you need to get advice, and this is not our expertise. You need to get advice from an insurance broker to see if you are able to find insurance for the agritourism offering that you want to do. Some insurance brokers are quite supportive of agritourism and some aren't. So if you feel like you're having a conversation with an insurance broker and they're telling you that everything's impossible to do, we strongly encourage you to talk to another insurance broker and get a second opinion. You might need a separate commercial public liability for your agritourism offering, so don't just think that your farm pack will do. So have that conversation with a broker. And this is it's information gathering. Please don't see this as a barrier. I always say to farmers, this is just part of the process and part of actually finding out what is possible and what is not. Because you might have a conversation with an insurance broker and they might say, you know, that something's really hard to get insurance for or affordable insurance for, like quad biking, horse riding, you know, getting in paddocks with animals, etc. And if you are given that information early in the piece, it means that you can tweak your offering. So don't just see it as, oh my God, it's impossible, I can't do it, I'm not going down that path. It's about tweaking the way you do things. There's often ways around it to actually reduce the risk and actually gain insurance for what you want to do. And the other thing just to keep in mind, brokers always advise that you write a risk management plan before you reach out to any insurers for insurance. They want to be able to see that you've considered the risks and you've also looked at how you can mitigate or eliminate risks. And that's going to help you in terms of progressing any insurance conversations. So always take the time with insurance. I encourage you to do it early in the piece. It will give you some really good insights and information. And then the other thing you want to consider is planning approvals, and do this one early. It's similar to what I was saying about insurance. Have some early conversations with council. You want to make sure that what you're offering is compliant, and you need to know what approval is needed. So start by talking to council's planning officer, and you can often have a pre-lodgement meeting with those council planning officers. A little bit of a tip: go through your tourism or economic development manager or officer at council, not directly to the planning department. And I say that because the economic development and tourism manager, their job is actually to enable development. Their job is to support you through development. Whereas the planning department, their job is actually to enforce the law. So they are all about compliance. So for them, they will actually just talk to you about the law and what's permissible, what's not. Whereas your economic development and tourism manager will help you understand that better and guide you through that process. So if you can get them involved in that conversation, it will just smooth the pathway a little bit for you. The other thing to consider if you're looking at a complex agritourism development is that you might want to engage a private planning consultant. So that would obviously come with a fee, but a private planning consultant can actually really help you through that process. So they essentially have the same skill set as council planning staff, but their job is actually to help you. Their job is to find a way forward. So they can actually support you to get approval without you having to go through council. So you still obviously have to follow all the legislation, but they are skilled and specialists in that area and understand how to navigate those compliance pathways. So if it's a little bit more complex, then that may be a good option for you to consider. But getting that approval is really important. It's critical to successful agritourism development, because we don't want you to be in a position where, you know, there's any risk to the farming business because something's not compliant, or you don't have insurance in place to do it. So always get this information and have the conversations. And I'll say it once again, please don't see this as a barrier, and please don't see this as a scary process. It's information gathering, and it will help you in the early stages to understand what's possible and what's not, and to finesse your vision or your plans accordingly. You don't want to get 10 years down the track and then realise something's not right. And the final thing we encourage you to do in the early stages of agritourism development is to build your skills. Tourism is very different to farming. So building your skills is really helpful. The positive thing is there's free training often provided by our regional and state tourism organisations. There's free training resources by our regional, state and national tourism organisations. And we also have tourism industry councils, and they often have free training resources as well. There is so much online for you to learn. There's things around how to market your business, how to create an experience, how to be trade ready, like all of these different things. And all of those terms you might be like, what does she mean? But if you have those conversations with your local council or your regional tourism organisation, they'll be able to point you in that direction. But there's lots of resources out there. The other thing is, if you're wanting to do tours, sometimes tour guide training is very useful. But I actually find most farmers are natural tour guides. They're characters, they're engaging, they're storytellers. And that's essentially what people are looking for in a tour experience. A great little example of this is the image you can see on the screen right now. That's Jill. She's from Red Ground Truffles in New South Wales. And she has a really fabulous story around how skill development was extremely beneficial to her tourism journey, because she established a relationship with her council's tourism manager. The tourism manager then actually told her about an upcoming training workshop that was being done by a state tourism organisation in her region. And that was just this catalyst of learning and training and growth and development for Jill. And it's a really great story, because essentially what she was offering was quite unique. And because she attended this training workshop, the state tourism organisation, Destination New South Wales, was really keen to talk to her and really keen to support her. And that's what's great in tourism, is we do have a really supportive ecosystem. So from that, Jill did some state-based training. She then went on and she did an online tourism trade ready program, which was organised by the Australian Tourism Export Council. So that allowed her to learn how to sell her product with commission, how to have new marketing distribution channels. That means that she could sell her offer, her experience through travel agents, through tour operators, through online travel agents like booking.com. So she went on this real discovery journey where she was learning, she was building her skills, she was meeting new people, she was creating these relationships. And she then went on to the Australian Tourism Exchange. That's a travel product expo where there's international buyers and Australian sellers or tourism operators that come together. As a result of that, she is now booked up for the next 6 months. So taking the time to build skills, learn, be a sponge, is going to be extremely valuable on your agritourism journey. So I really encourage you to take the opportunity and advantage of the extensive support that exists within the tourism industry. Now, one final thing from me before I hand over to Kushla. When we talk about support, there are some fabulous national and state resources, including these two guides you can see on the screen right now. Australian Regional Tourism have been doing some fabulous work on a national scale around agritourism development. They've created some fabulous guides, one of them being a guide for farmers. So make sure you have a look at that. That's the one that has the quiz in it. But also, if you scan the QR code that you can see on the screen right now, that will take you to our website, Tillman Group. And we've actually compiled a whole list, state by state, of the different resources and tools and networks available to support farmers on and their agri-tourism journey. The other thing I just want to mention is the Australian Regional Tourism. This is just a little bit of a plug for them. They hold an annual convention and also an agri-tourism summit, and that's happening in the Adelaide Hills in October this year. So anybody in South Australia, make sure you check that one out. But have a look at the blog. There's some great resources in there, and there's some fabulous people working across the country supporting farmers on their agritourism journey at the moment. So make sure that you explore those opportunities. But I just want to hand over now before we go to questions, and Kushla is going to share a couple more great case studies just to inspire you all this evening.
Hi everyone, just 5 minutes to share a couple of case studies that have inspired us at Tillman Group. The first is Windy Acres Farm, a lavender farm near Toowoomba by Alicia Voland. And there's a couple of great takeaways I learned from a presentation she did, which is via that QR code. You can see a recording of it where she goes into detail around the early years of development of agritourism on her new lavender farm. So what she offers is she does have an on-farm retail shop in a shipping container, beautifully painted with a great mural. So that's lavender products such as soap and also honey on sale. She has open day events. So she starts her agritourism season. She's only open for a few months of the year for visitors. And she starts that with a donation-based Easter egg and educational scavenger hunt for families. And that's a bit of a give back to the community. She wants families to be able to have affordable, fantastic experiences. So that's why it's donation-based. 5,000 people attend. So very popular. She's got workshops and classes for adults. That includes beekeeping basics, also honey harvest, and interestingly, agribusiness and agritourism startup workshops. And she, in terms of adult sort of experiences, she also leverages the nearby Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers, which is massive, attracts a couple 100,000 people to Toowoomba. And during that festival, she runs events like floristry classes and sunset yoga classes. And the festival promotes them as part of their program and brings all the visitors to her farm. And then lastly, she's got children's activities. So that's experiential learning. Sorry, if you just jump back there, Linda. She's got honey harvest, interactive workshops, sensory experiences in the lavender fields, a seed bomb workshop, and native bee hotel workshop. And the two key learnings I took away from Alicia, what I learned from her is she tested and trialed a whole lot of agritourism offerings to figure out which had the best return for the effort that she had to put into them. So, for example, a business advisor helped her see that it's a lot easier to sell one $180 ticket for a beekeeping course than it is to sell $180 worth of soaps. So nowadays, her retail shop is really just an add-on for ticketed activities that she's running on the farm. And the second takeaway I learned from Alicia is right from when she first bought this farm, which was a bare, flat dirt field, bare dirt, she started developing a social media following about her journey and what she was doing. I'm starting a lavender farm and then I'm going to do agritourism. And she got so many people, I think it was a couple of thousand people, invested in her family's journey and what they were doing. So when she finally launched her agritourism, people were there invested in her family and her story and ready to support her and come along and buy from her. And she says, don't open the doors expecting people to be there waiting without putting in the effort to raise awareness. So the last case study is the Kalbar Sunflower Festival. This is also near where we are in Toowoomba. It's held on a lucerne farm and it started during a drought because sunflowers are something that are pretty drought hardy. And it was started by a couple, Jenny and Russell Jenner. It's only a 3-day event held annually, but it makes this year it made $160,000 for charity, and last year it made over $130,000. That's in just 3 days. So fair enough being a fundraiser for a charity, it's for a cancer charity, and actually Jenny's husband Russell died of cancer after they started the Sunflower Festival. But it just sort of shows how easy it is to make money from tourism compared to making money from farming. So what that offers is there's sunflower fields, there's 50 photography props in the field so people can take photos. There's a sunflower maze, a sensory garden, a fairy garden, a pick your own sunflowers area. There's a children's hub with an animal petting farm and free art and craft activities and free face painting and tattoos. And I didn't mention, but there's an entry fee to enter. It's just over $30. So that's one way they make money. But then there's a whole bunch of add-on experiences that people can also purchase. So there's food there. There's a Devonshire tea marquee and other food opportunities. There's art workshops and flower crown workshops. There's photography shoots. So you can have professional photography taken of your family, for example. There's 3 long lunch events and a gala dinner, helicopter flights, yoga in the sunflowers, and they sell sunflowers, obviously, as well. And another really nice thing that they do is it's accessible for people with mobility disability. So there's a long wheelchair accessible track and also a raised viewing area. There's a little aside, including that it's compulsory by law, but you should be accessible. It's a huge market. So people with disability is about 20% of Australians. They spend money. It's worth making your business accessible so they can come visit you and spend their money with you. So lastly, that's it. We're just ready for Q&A now. So Linda's gonna, before we turn off that, Linda will stop sharing in a second and we can all turn on our cameras and ask questions with each other. But I just wanted to mention these 2 QR codes. The one on the left is a free Facebook group that we host called Australian Agritourism Development. It's not for promotion to potential visitors. It's just for peer learning. So the only members are agritourism operators or farmers like yourselves, and destination managers who have agritourism that they're supporting in their destinations. So it's a great place to ask questions. Like someone asked earlier in the chat, who knows a good insurance provider? Or anything and everything where you need help or advice or inspiration, or who's done this before, or anyone's had a learning. And then the second QR code there, the green one, is to subscribe to Tillma's industry newsletter. So all we share about is regional tourism, often sharing resources that are helpful, such as grants or learnings or resources. So thanks so much for listening to us for a whole hour, and now it's over to you. I hope Linda's going to stop sharing her screen. If anyone wants to jump in with the, we can all turn on our cameras, we can see each other, and if you want to ask a question, either write it in the chat or just take yourself off mute and camera and ask away.
I'm going to start, Linda. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So comprehensive. Could you just, you say learn from a destination manager. I'm not familiar with that job title. So who is a destination manager? How do we find them? What do they do?
Yeah, I was really conscious of tourism jargon. I knew that every now and then I'd be like, be careful. We get caught in our own jargon sometimes. So apologies for that. Yeah, a destination manager is essentially somebody that works within your local area that works in managing tourism. So that could be council. So council may have, but all councils are different, and it depends on the size and scale of council. So it could be within a council, it can sometimes be in economic development. There might be specific tourism team, or sometimes it sits even in community development. So just finding out who within your local council looks after tourism. Sometimes if council's not playing a direct role in tourism, that destination manager role may sit with what we call the regional tourism organisation. So that's kind of, or in New South Wales, they're called a destination network. This is where our industry is a little bit confusing. Terminology can be hard because we like to be different across states and territories, but it's that person or that organisation that is really focused on developing tourism across your wider region. But I would suggest, Louise, the first point of contact is council, and they will be able to plug you into the wider networks. But also that article that we put the link to on our website, that's got some good resources as well that will direct you to the right people. It's a bit of a minefield, the tourism industry, when you're new to it. We've got lots of different layers and lots of different associations. But like I was saying with that example of Jill with the truffles, just having that contact with council then kind of created this flow-on effect of building relationships and, really kind of engaging her into our tourism industry. So I would start with your council.
Okay. Good advice. Because mostly our experiences with council is from the planning department, building things.
Exactly.
So we've got to sort of get over that barrier, find the right people to talk to. And I did like your advice, contact the economic development officer before the planning officer. Very, very good distinction there. But look, I really, really want to thank Kushla and Linda once again for collaborating with TALGA to present this. I found it really comprehensive. I've got lots of takeaways. I've been taking notes. I'll be rewatching everything, following all the links, the great QR codes that they've supplied in the slide shows. It will be recorded. We'll have it up on TALGA YouTube with a link for our members, and I'm sure Tilma will be sharing it with anybody as well. Just like to finish off with a plug. As I mentioned, TALGA is turning 30 years this year. 30 years of operation, and we are planning a fabulous celebration, 30 years conference and field day. It's to be held mid-October down in Creswick, Victoria, with the field day at Hanley Gardens. Joshua Ruff and his family are kindly hosting us. Lots of learnings, lots of fun, lots of experienced growers, new growers, everybody's welcome. If you're interested, please do check out the TALGA website. Okay?
Thank you.
I think we're done, Kushla. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We'll say bye-bye.